Cross-examination, a podcast by your host, the nationally renowned criminal defense attorney, Neil Rockheim.
Welcome to another edition of Killer Cross-Examination. As you know, this is a podcast devoted to cross-examination, criminal defense, and criminal justice issues. I'm your host, Neil Rockheim. And for weeks now, we've been focusing on various aspects of criminal defense, current events, and cross-examination. I am a proponent of a style of cross-examination that I've called killer cross-examination. And the idea is to ultimately kill the credibility of the witness. And today I want to talk about something, possibly the worst cross-examination that I've seen of an expert witness in all my years. I'm literally, during this transcript, going to break down a cross-examination of a really important witness, a state expert. Not going to name the lawyer, not going to do that, but the cross-examination is awful. It's terrible. And for some reason, I still don't quite understand why lawyers, after the years of practice, or even brand new lawyers, don't understand that cross-examination is not something that any and everybody can do. They think that everybody can do it. Not every doctor, despite years of training, believes that he or she should conduct open heart surgery, or for that matter, even any surgery. Some doctors from the very beginning have known that surgery is not for them. Others may have even thought about going into the surgical field and realize, you know what, surgery is not for me. Leave it to the other guys that are good at it, that have the stomach for it, that can do it, that know the area, that are willing to undertake it, that are creative and have that. And there's nothing wrong with a doctor who isn't capable or acknowledges that he's not capable or she's not capable or comfortable doing any type of surgery. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's honest. And you know what? It's appropriate, because doing surgery, if you're not qualified, capable, or talented enough or skilled enough to do it, would result in potential injury to the patient. Just like I wouldn't, for example, attempt to do some kind of triple gainer somersaulting and, twisting, jackknifing off of a cliff or a high platform into a pool. You want to know why I wouldn't do that? Because I could hurt myself. I'm not qualified. I'm not trained. I don't have the skill set to do it. And the fact that I've dove before, or I've jumped into pools before, or jumped off of short ledges, or even off of a relatively higher ledge, or even a higher sand dune into a lake or to a pool, or jumped off of a swinging tire into a river, doesn't mean that I'm qualified to attempt the most complicated dives into water known to man. But for some reason, lawyers are different. Lawyers, for some reason, think that because they have a P number, and because they have a practice number, because they've been practicing for a short period of time, or watched a video here or there, or ended up seeing something, or read a book, or attended a seminar, or attended a school, or went to a class, that somehow they are qualified to and should undertake cross-examination of witnesses, and even undertake cross-examination of expert professional witnesses who have years upon years of not only training in the field of forensics, that is testifying in court about scientific matters, but actually years and years of training in their scientific discipline. And for whatever reason, lawyers still do it. I would venture to guess that if the courtrooms were still open and we weren't dealing with COVID, that you or I could walk into any courtroom anywhere in the United States. All right, let's start with the courthouse. And we could walk into a courtroom where there was some trial that was being undertaken, and we could watch, and we might end up happening upon a skilled lawyer conducting cross-examination of witnesses. But the truth is that we have a better chance of walking in on someone that is doing a piss-poor job of cross-examination, who's unprepared, has no plan, has no focus, has no knowledge, has no roadmap of where he or she wants to go, and for whatever reason abandons some of the traditional rules of cross-examination, like leading questions and trying to corner the witness, and instead conducting what amounts to a cross-examination that if the cover of the coffin, if the lid on the coffin were even slightly open, They're just nailing it shut. I kid you not, I don't mean this as disparagement to lawyers as a whole, because there are some amazing lawyers, and I'm friends with some incredible lawyers. But the fact of the matter is that there's nothing that tells a lawyer, other than just the honest internal assessment that he or she shouldn't undertake some of the stuff, that stops lawyers from doing it. Nothing. You don't have to get recertified. You don't have to have someone read your transcripts. You don't have to have someone approve the fact that you're capable of doing it. No. If a client hires you or you're court appointed, you get to do it, even if you're not qualified. And I'm telling you, I have read some doozies, and you have a better chance, I believe, of walking into a random courthouse and walking into a random courtroom and sitting down and watching a random trial and catching very poor lawyering than you do catching very good lawyering. And that is a very, very sad thing to say. Think about that. Well, I'm thinking about it. Because over the weekend and towards the end of last week, I read a transcript, and I reread the transcript again and was taking notes because it is awful. It contains so many lessons about what not to do when cross-examining an expert witness. I mean, this is an important witness. This is an important expert in an area that is ripe for challenge. This is an important witness that people like me have been angling, we have been hankering, I have been chomping at the bit to get this man into court and to cross-examine. On a couple of occasions, my cases have been delayed or adjourned, but I have been trying to get in to cross-examine this man. And I am stunned at the cross-examination that I just read. And it provides me with an opportunity to go through it and give you some points and pointers. For example, the witness, this is an expert witness. This man has trained in the area of forensic science in this particular discipline. He is trained in this area for years. He has cut his teeth testifying in cases all across the country. And here he is now in Michigan. The lawyer that was conducting the examination has a chance to cross-examine, has a chance to conduct something called voir dire of the witness. That means when the prosecutor moves to actually qualify the witness as an expert in this particular field, the lawyer has a chance to test and to question the qualifications of the witness. So when the prosecutor moved to qualify this witness as an expert, the lawyer gets a free shot. You get a free shot. The guy has to sit there and answer the questions before he gets to be qualified as an expert. You got a free shot. Take your free shot, man. He didn't. Prosecutor moves to qualify, having gone, and the witness had talked about his qualifications and talked about some research that he had done in his own laboratory. No one's seen any of that research. No one has seen any of these experiments. And he talked about his qualifications, and the lawyer, when it came time to stand up and ask some questions about whether or not he had any objection to the witness being qualified as an expert, he says no objection. Did you learn anything from that? Did you even get a chance to test that? Even if you don't really have a lot to ask on voir dire of the witness at that point, you can at least test your interaction with the witness. You can get up there and pose some questions to the witness to see how it is you and the witness are interacting, to get a feel for him. So you don't, when you get up there to ask cross-examination questions, it's not just cold. It's like getting a dry run. It's like a warm-up. But he passed. Well, get this. There came some point during the cross-examination of this witness where the witness is, prosecutor, there's just so much to learn from this examination. the witness was literally taking over the direct examination. The prosecutor's putting questions to him, and he's sort of, well, before I get to that, let me get here. Oh, you mean that? But before I talk about that, I need to talk about this. He was literally redirecting the prosecutor so that the prosecutor's examination was more effective. That's something that as a cross-examiner, you should be taking note of. You should take note of how the witness, I've said this time and time again, watch and listen. Don't have your head buried in your legal pad. Watch and listen to how the witness is answering the prosecutor's questions, because if he's going to redirect and take control of the direct examination, which is a friendly examination, you better damn well know that he's going to take control or attempt to take control of your examination, which is going to be much more confrontational and should be much more directed towards helping the defense. It should be less friendly. Unbelievable. How about this? Ask leading questions. I know that there are some lawyers, and I'm one of them, that once in a while can get yourself to a position where you can ask some open-ended questions of witnesses. You only ask an open-ended question of a witness on cross-examination if you're not afraid of the answer. You don't have to say to the witness, for example, is it 2 + 2 4? Because you know the answer is yes. If you want to test the witness and you're not afraid of whatever the answer is, you could literally decide to ask the witness an open-ended question. You could say, what is 2 + 2? Do you know the answer to the math problem 2 + 2? Oh, you do? What is it? Because the answer can't hurt you. He's either going to say 4, because we all know the answer is 4, or he's going to say something absurd, which means that you get to go off and you get to question him about the absurd answer. And so, yes, there is a time, very, very, very rare, but there is a time where you can ask open-ended questions of a witness on cross-examination because you're not afraid of the answer, or it's a total setup. And I've done that, where I've set the witness up to ask an open-ended question, but I knew all of the possible variations of answers that the witness might give me, and I was prepared for them all. You have to be prepared if you conduct a cross-examination. And that means that if you're going to ask an open-ended question, you better be ready for any answer that comes your way. Well, this lawyer wasn't doing that. He literally asked this line of questioning. When the expert had offered an opinion that based on his review of the records, another person who was not present, a technician, had done a required certification maintenance check on a breath test machine. And the lawyer said to him, well, are you saying he did it? And then the witness says, yes, in my opinion. What answer were you hoping for? He's already said on direct examination that he, the witness, the expert witness, is saying that based on his review of the records that this technician did the required maintenance check. All you've done is, are you saying he did it? What, you think that just because you stood up there and you happened to magically ask the question that the witness is going to look at you and go, you know what, I know I said on direct examination that I thought he did it, but because you're putting the question to me, I'm going to change my mind and say, no, I'm not sure he did. All you're doing is reinforcing the answer that was given on direct examination. Well then, are you saying he did it? Yes, in my opinion. And then here comes this doozy of a question. This question was sure to provide the knockout punch. What are you relying on? You're literally going to put to an expert witness, a guy who's testified in thousands of cases, who's been cross-examined by some of the best lawyers in the country and some of the best lawyers who I personally know in this state, and you're going to ask him, what are you relying on? You better have a comfy chair, and you better have some Monster energy drink or some espresso. You better have an ottoman. You better sit back and put your feet up, because he's going to crush you with that answer. He's going to talk forever, he's going to narrate, and he's going to literally pile on everything he can think of to explain what he's relying on. So get comfy, because you just actually threw him a softball. Don't do that. You got to have a plan. Do you know how many lawyers have the ability, and I only know of a few, that have the ability to get up there and just wing it? People think that I get up there and just wing it. There are times where I get up there and I don't have notes. And there are times where I get up and I have some loose idea, some notes about what I'm going to talk about, but I don't have an outline or certainly not a script. Never have that. But anybody who's watched me cross-examine will tell you that I always go into it with some idea. And once in a while, have I had to get up there and just wing it. Now, I've never winged it where I just got up there and didn't have any plan. I at least have a plan. I have an idea of where I want to go, and I have things that I want to talk about. But to just get up there and have no clue, no plan, all you're doing is reinforcing. All you're doing is you're going into battle with a guy who's got a tank and a howitzer, and he's got cannons, and he's got machine guns, and you're going there with like a butter knife, if you don't have a plan of attack of a person like that. With a witness who's as skilled as this, you have to be able to get in there and cut and get out. You can't sit there and try to exchange punches with the guy. You're not equipped. Few lawyers are. I'm telling you that I have prepared to cross-examine this particular witness, and I have spent hours upon hours upon hours, and my team has spent even more time, hours upon hours upon hours upon hours, combing over thousands upon thousands of pages of transcripts, reports, documents, exhibits, scouring through his history in order for us to come up with a plan. And will the cross-examination be scripted? No. Will there be some ad lib? Yes. Of course, every examination I do has some bit of ad lib in it. Is it going to be in the moment and contemporaneous? Yes, I sure hope it will. And it's not going to be based off of a script, but it's not going to meet us getting up there with nothing and a blank sheet of paper and just winging it without having any ammunition at all. As I said, few lawyers can do that, and no good lawyers I know do that. So there comes another point. Here's another tip. You've got to know what your focus and your goal is when you get up there to cross-examine a witness. This man got up there. You have to have some plan. You have to have some idea of what are you trying to accomplish, and you have to know the materials. If you don't know the science and the person who's testifying is a scientist, that's fine. It's not okay, but if that's the position you're in and that's the best you got, then you know what? Then don't touch upon the science. Just go after him for bias or motive or something else. But if you're going to cross-examine somebody on the science, don't just throw out some softball questions that you think he's just going to strike on, because he's not. He's already heard these before. If you're going to cross-examine a scientist, you need to know the science. Or at least you need to know the science of the areas that you want to question him on. And if it's a factual cross-examination or it's a combination of both, you better know the facts too. This guy threw out something like, well, you know that the guy who was involved was, he was fabricating to get the job done. And the witness responds, nope, that's not what I was announcing throughout all of it. It was a perfect opportunity if you knew the material, if you knew the subject matter, if you knew what had happened, to lay out a cross-examination, to challenge the expert, at least at that point. Wait a minute. And this is close to how I would have done it. So this person was employed, yes, employed by you or by a company working with you, yes. He's subsequently been terminated, yes. He's been charged with a crime, yes. The crime is a crime that involves fraud or dishonesty. Yes, it in fact involves false pretenses, right? Right. You understand that false pretenses means that he or a person in his position made a representation, right? Yes, a false one, correct. And that people relied on it. He can argue all he wants, but that people relied on it, yes? And people, in your experience, because you've been involved in law enforcement, don't just act without a motive, do they? Well, I don't know what his motivation was. I'm sure he would say. But you know that people have a reason for doing something. Maybe it's for selfish reasons. Maybe it's for more money. Maybe it's because maybe you didn't even know the reason. Maybe it's for laziness. There typically is a reason why somebody goes about something, right? Right. You understood that there were things that this person was required to do. Yes. You looked at it. Yes. You looked at what he did. Correct. You discovered that there were misrepresentations that were made. He could argue all he wants about that, but we know the material because I know the material, and this lawyer should have known the material. And he would have to ultimately concede that, yes, there were misrepresentations made. Those misrepresentations were made to a law enforcement agency, yes. And people were relying on that. Yes. That's fraud, isn't it? Easy. If you know the material. He asks another open-ended question. You have no way of knowing if this employee did the tests. He says, well, that's not correct, says the witness. We have all the documents. Where do you hear this? You have them all? Correct. And you have all of them? Correct. What are you accomplishing with that cross-examination besides just nailing the lid of the coffin even tighter? If you asked that question and you knew that he had all of the documents to support that opinion, then you shouldn't have asked the question. If you didn't know whether he had all the documents, then you should have known whether he had all the documents. You should have actually known what was required in order for him to be able to make that assessment. Before you asked the question, all you did was tee it up and give this expert witness another opportunity to show how prepared and thorough he was. And you couldn't rebut it because all you were doing was literally just sort of repeating the questions, that his answers, and putting them back into question form. Guess what? We don't need a second prosecutor in court. Nobody needs a second prosecutor in court. If the prosecutors need help, they'll go to one of their peers. I hate to say that, but repeating what was said on direct examination or repeating what the witness said and then recasting it with a question mark at the end isn't cross-examination. It's just reinforcement of the witness's answers. Then there came a point where, as this lawyer is handling documents and trying to show the expert documents, the prosecutor goes, I don't have any objection with admitting those. That should be your first sign. Should be your first little thought, a little bell that goes up. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling. It's a problem because if the prosecutor's moving to admit the exhibits or documents that you're showing the witness, that means that she wants them in. That means that they help her. And of course, it was pretty easy to tell that the lawyer was caught off guard by that because his response to that was, well, I don't know what I'm doing with them. What? You're conducting a cross-examination of a professional expert witness in an area that is highly technically scientific with the expert who would give even the best cross-examiners a tough time. And you're now saying you don't know what you're doing with them? Look, don't just get up there to ask questions. Don't get up there just to act like because you're the defense lawyer and you need to ask questions because you're the defense lawyer. If you don't have any questions to ask, don't ask them. All you're going to do is make things worse. Now, should you have questions of a witness like this? Yes, but it takes hours and hours of research and preparation, and it takes skill. I could research all day long how to do one of those crazy fancy dives off of a high platform. I could watch hundreds of videos to watch how to do that sort of a dive. But you have to have experience, practice, and skill. Even if you practice and you have the knowledge, it doesn't mean you have the skill to do them well. Maybe I could do the dive by watching and gaining the experience and the knowledge. Maybe I could learn to do the dive without killing myself or injuring myself. But I'm never going to do the dive like a guy like Greg Louganis unless I have the skill. And the same goes for cross-examinations. sometimes you just have to concede that you're not up to the task. And look, there's a ton of lawyers out there who are always willing to step in and help and always willing to help other lawyers out. There's no shame in asking them for help. There's no shame in people call me all the time and ask me for advice on how to approach or cross-examine a witness. But here's tip number 3 or 4 of this discussion. If you don't know what to ask, if you don't know what questions to ask, don't ask any. Don't just get up there just to ask questions because you think you have to. And don't do it because your client is sitting there looking at you and wondering like, gee, how come I've got my client sitting over here. I better get up and do something just to make a good impression. No. If you're at that point, you ought to know that if you don't know what you're doing and you're not prepared to conduct that examination and that witness, then your client is sitting there and he's going to be hurt because all you're going to do is expose him even more. All you're going to do is give the judge or the jury a chance to see the witness just completely destroy you, the lawyer. And guess what? When you get up to the cross-examine, judges and juries, they expect that as a defense lawyer that you're going to do something. They expect that when you're getting up there that you're going to actually do something, that you have something to do. And they expect, this is part of the sponsorship theory of trial advocacy, they expect that when you get up there that you're going to do things that help your client. And if you get up there and do things that don't help your client, then the judge and jury think that you can't help your client, that your client is helpless. So it would be better for you to say ask nothing, in my opinion, than to get up there and ask hurtful questions. And to show a witness, an expert witness, documents and to start saying, here are some documents I have. And then when the prosecutor moves to say, well, I don't know what I'm doing with them. I'm not sure what my point is. And why are you even showing them to him? If you're using this opportunity to show the witness some documents because you think that you might be able to get some, you want to learn something, I got news for you. The school is not in court. School you can go to school to learn this stuff. You can call experts on the phone and be educated about this. Don't use your client or the client's court case as a chance to learn about the science by asking open-ended questions and showing a witness documents without any idea what they mean or any purpose. And this. I don't know how many times I have to say this. If you get to a point where you're questioning a witness and you feel like you're behind, then you are. You have to listen to that internal clock. You have to listen to your gut. If your gut is telling you that you're behind or that you feel uncomfortable or awkward, you need to regroup. Ask the judge for an opportunity to take a break. Say you can you use the bathroom? Take a few minutes. Tell the judge you want to get some water. Ask to take a break. Or take a deep breath and go to some material that you're comfortable questioning the witness about. Because what I read, was a lawyer that got himself into a position where he was so far behind that he basically just started to repeat. He was asking questions that almost helped the witness and the prosecutor make the case. There was a question about whether or not this technician had done a particular test. I know the questions to ask because I'm prepared to conduct this cross-examination. But it literally came down to this witness, this expert witness saying, well, that appears to be this man's signature on this document. And the question that was put to him by the lawyer was, you believe that that is his signature? What are you hoping to accomplish with that question? It's not a leading question. It doesn't expose the witness to bias or a revelation that he's biased or interested. It doesn't expose him to, doesn't cross-examine or put him in a position to be contradicted. If you really want to get into a whole signature battle, I guess you could choose to question him a bit differently and just say, look, you're an expert in your particular field, according to you, yes. There are experts in handwriting comparison, right? You're not one of them, correct? Correct. You could at least do something like that. I'm not saying it's particularly effective, but you could at least do something like that. to try to get the witness to back away from his opinion that a signature that he's looking at on a copied document was made by someone that he knows, or that he's offering some lay opinion that the signature was made by the same person. You could at least do that to try to get him to, you could do that for, as I did it in 3 questions, you could do it in 20 questions. If you want to draw it out and try to make it more protracted to show that he's trying to offer an opinion in an area that he's not, you could try to make, you could question about that and show that he's biased if you wanted to. And you could go even further and show that he's no expert in the field of handwriting analysis. He has no experience in that, no training in that, no expertise in that. Is he offering to be an expert in that? He knows that there are forgeries and people who have conducted forgeries in the past, and some very good forgers, I'm sure he would agree, exist. Yes. And then you could literally ask him, well, are you trying to take away from that the experts in the field of handwriting analysis? No. Are you saying it's that easy, that that's unnecessary, that those people don't matter? You could go that far if you chose to. And he's going to back away and say, well, that's not my area of expertise. I can guarantee you he's going to back away. He'll say, well, it appeared to me to be. And you could, of course, say, yeah, but to the lay witness, it would appear that these instruments, these testing machines, that they weren't working properly. Should we rely on that? And then at one point, there's a discussion about error, and the witness corrects him and says, well, we don't use the term error. We mean uncertainty budget. And the lawyer says, what did you call it? What is it called? Look, you're conducting a cross-examination of an expert. You need to know the material. You need to know the areas of the science and the terminology of it. All you're doing by doing that is helping the other side. You might as well just ask the prosecutor to take the hammer and close the coffin finally, because that's what you're doing. I'm not trying to be mean, but if everybody could do it, then everybody would do it. And if everyone were good at it, then everyone would be good at it. We wouldn't need people like me or other people who I can identify who are excellent at cross-examination. Everyone would just be able to do it. It's why everyone can't be a professional football player. It's why everyone can't be a professional basketball player. It's why everyone can't be an actor or an actress, or everyone can't be an astrophysicist. It's why not everyone can invent something. It's why there are people who are just able to excel in particular fields and particular subfields and particular things. They're good at it. But even if you're not one of those people, even if you can't play the instrument like a first chair in the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, you can still learn to play the instrument, but you can't just pick up the instrument and start twiddling around with it and blowing into it. You're going to make noise. You're not going to make music. You can at least learn the instrument, and you can at least learn the notes, and you can at least learn how to play it. And have a song or a musical sheet in front of you so you know how to play those notes in a certain order, in a certain pattern, in a certain way that produces some music. Will it be concert quality, symphony quality? Maybe not. But it won't hurt our ears. And last was this question. There were some errors there were some things that had gone wrong with one of the machines. There was a lot to be done with that. But you can tell that the lawyer was just overmatched by the witness, and actually at one point said to him, were you concerned with the fact that there were some errors when the maintenance check was done? What? Do you think that just because you're asking the question that this witness is going to magically just fall into some spell and go, oh, yeah, I was concerned. Ignore all of my direct examination. Ignore all the opinions I've offered in the other cases in which I've testified. Yes, you're right, lawyer. I was concerned. You got me. Do you think he's just going to roll over and play dead like that? If there were, don't ask him if he's concerned. He's going to say no. He's going to explain why, and he's going to tee it up and explain it. And guess what? That's exactly what he did. In fact, he went even further. He used that question to make his point even stronger and say, yes, that's why we do these maintenance checks, because they're supposed to pick up things that go wrong so we can correct them. So when people who are tested, like your client, we know the tests are reliable. Just making things worse. Have a plan. Know the material. Know if you're not up to the task and call on somebody else to do it. Know if this is actually your field. Just because you happen to call yourself a trial lawyer or someone who's capable or qualified to do this, or that's how you market yourself, doesn't mean that you are. Know your limits. Ask leading questions. And if you don't have something to ask, sit down. There's a Hippocratic oath that doctors take. Lawyers to get up there and cross-examine without the skill or the competence to do it, and without preparing themselves for the task at hand, without a plan, without knowledge of the area, without having spent hours upon hours preparing to know the material, and to then apply the material using skill and training, they're harming the client. And what's worse is that there's a judge or jury sitting there, and because the judge or jury is learning nothing new, they're not seeing the lawyer do anything to help the client or to move the ball in favor of the defense. The judge and jury become convinced that the expert witness is reliable and believable. This is Neil Rockhind. I am a proponent of killer cross-examination. This is an important subject to me. And I hope it's an important subject to you. Thanks for tuning in.
Killer cross-examination. A podcast by your host, the nationally renowned criminal defense attorney, Neil Rockhind.